Hey everyone, just a heads up that this episode is pretty heavy. We're talking about domestic violence and abuse. So if that is not for you, completely understood. Take care and we'll catch you next week. Being victimized changes people, and trying to undo that trauma can often last a lifetime. And it can affect people's ability to trust anyone and anything.
She was referred to us, I think, by 16th Street Community Health Clinic.
Mariana Rodriguez works in Milwaukee, helping people work through that process. She remembers meeting one woman who was at the beginning of her healing journey.
Her husband was very much an alcoholic, abusive, came the weekends and he would disappear and would use all the money, come home broke.
Mariana supports survivors of domestic violence leave their abusive relationships. The work is emotionally exhausting. It can often be dangerous too. And this work is tragically nuanced.
She came to us very hesitant, which I understand, very hesitant to speak against their relationship, hesitant to even consider separation because of family and the thought of the children not having a father.
Something you should know about Mariana that's different from other folks who do this kind of work is she often helps people who are undocumented. When an undocumented person is the victim of domestic violence or another crime, there's an additional layer of fear. Fear around coming forward and reporting it to police, especially today. But there is a process in place to help these immigrants, ones like Mariana is talking about, get legal status. The problem is, besides the fear, the real dangers, and the nuance, this process can take years, and it comes at the cost of having to prove their abuse. I'm Jimmy Gutierrez, and this is Status Pending, a podcast from WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR. Here we get into how our immigration system works and doesn't, and the impact it has on the people who are going through it. Today, we'll learn about a different pathway to citizenship, one for immigrants without legal status who have been victims of crimes while living in the U.S. Reporter Maria Peralta Ariano takes it from here.
The people we're talking about in this story are vulnerable in multiple ways. Their immigration status and the fact that they're victims of abuse or another crime. That's why it was difficult to find someone who was willing to share their story publicly. So I turned to the people who work with them, advocates and lawyers. That brings us back to Mariana Rodriguez. She's the director of Milwaukee's Yumos Latino Resource Center. It served Milwaukee's immigrant community since 2001. And Mariana has been an advocate for over 20 years. Among the services they provide, the center has a 24-hour crisis hotline for domestic violence and sexual assault survivors.
They often just want to leave. They just want to leave. They don't want to create any more issues. They don't want family to know. They don't want to create any harm on the batterer. They don't want to see the batterer being deported. They don't want to separate the children from their fathers. And so a victim, especially a woman, has to navigate all of these spiritual, psychological, emotional decisions that often a non-immigrant victim doesn't have to think about.
In the 90s and early 2000s, the U.S. created visas to protect undocumented immigrants who were victims of crime and potentially give them a road to citizenship. Today, we'll be talking about two of those visas, the U visa for serious crime victims and visas through the Violence Against Women Act, or VAWA. We'll start with VAWA. This visa is for undocumented folks who are suffering from abuse inside their family. It could be from their spouse, child, or parent. But that person has to be a U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident. VAWA is supposed to make it easier for undocumented victims to come forward.
Part of why that came about was because of the fact that there were immigrant women who were married to U.S. citizens, and that whole legal status was used against them. And one of the things that they always did was, I'm not going to apply for you. And so, so they held that. It was a very coercive tactic, and it kept victims in very abusive relationships.
United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, or USCIS, says almost 70,000 people filed VAWA petitions last year. There's no limit on the number of visas the U.S. grants under VAWA. And we don't know how many potential VAWA cases go unreported. People in that situation might fear that they won't be believed. They have to navigate unfamiliar legal and medical systems. They may have fears about how their family will react, or worse, being separated from their children. And even when a victim does come forward, there are other barriers.
We have to be able to prove that there was violence. You have to be able to call the police. We need to get that certification saying that there was a call that came from that home, or a certification from the district attorney's office that a victim was cooperating.
Let's go through those steps. First, the survivor of abuse has to file a self-petition for a VAWA visa. They do this with USCIS. It can be filed without the knowledge of the abuser. For those in Wisconsin and a few other states, there is something that allows them extra support in the process. It's called the Victim Accompaniment Statute. This means survivors can request an advocate to be with them during the legal process and in healthcare appointments. It gives them the chance to have a trusted person at their side. It helps them feel more comfortable and protected.
We're able to help that client prepare for them to what's going to happen. The police is going to come. They're going to ask you your questions. They're going to ask you
when the crime happened, how it happened. They're going to want details, things that victims might have tried hard to forget.
When they're asking you these questions, it's not because they don't believe you, but they are trying to find out what happened. Okay, they're going to ask you several times so that they don't feel like you don't believe me. No, this is part of what they do.
Michael Longworth is a staff attorney for the Legal Aid Society of Milwaukee. It provides free legal help to people in need, including immigrants. He explains the kind of evidence you need to show in a VAWA petition.
That could be like abusive text messages, injuries, or like medical visits that would have notes about abuse occurring or any concern about abuse of the patient. And then you submit them to USCIS, and their current processing time is 43 months, so a little under 4 years.
4 years. It's a long time for an abuse survivor to wait in limbo, wondering what they'll do. It can put victims in a dangerous position. Their abusers might still be in their lives. They might have children together. In the meantime, survivors can work with advocates to set up safety plans. They have to navigate how to secure work, housing, transportation, childcare, and other essentials. Mariana helps with that.
So when we're hitting on how do we keep a victim safe, we have to look at the whole entire wheel of what is happening to that victim that is beyond just leaving a relationship. It is much more than just, let's get you out of this house, let's just get you out of this relationship, and after that, you're going to be fine. No, you leave that, now the bigger challenges happen. How are you going to sustain, this?
In a VAWA petition, the burden of proof is lower than, say, a criminal court case. The person petitioning has to show that it's more likely than not that they have been abused by a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident in their household. Once USCIS decides the petition does meet that standard, the petitioner becomes eligible for things like housing assistance and food stamps that could help them in leaving their abuser. Mariana says the Latina Resource Center has never seen a denied VAWA application, but it's just the first step. VAWA grants the petitioner 4 years of deferred action, meaning they have temporary permission to live in the U.S. This gives immigrants who suffered abuse protection against deportation and time to apply for a work permit and green card. So let's recap. VAWA begins with a self-petition. They have to give evidence, text messages, medical records, things like that. If the petition meets the requirements, they become eligible for public benefits while awaiting the final decision. An approval means they can live and work in the U.S. and apply to potentially receive a green card. That's VAWA. Now, let's talk U-Visa. In some cases, the people seeking U-Visas have also experienced domestic violence, but it was at the hands of someone like a boyfriend who isn't their spouse. Or maybe it was their spouse, but they're undocumented. Remember, for VAWA, the abuser needs to be a U.S. citizen or permanent legal resident. This was the situation for the woman Mariana talked about earlier. We spoke again, this time over a call.
And she had 3 children. and undocumented and very much suffered a great deal of violence from her husband, who they were both undocumented.
The U visa was created for a similar reason to VAWA, to protect people without legal status when they report a crime. It gives them some form of assurance that they can go to the police without the risk of deportation. The U visa, though, unlike VAWA, is capped. Only 10,000 per year are granted. The application requires a police report and a long list of documents to prove the crime and its impact. Eligible crimes range from false imprisonment and sexual assault to blackmail and kidnapping, or domestic violence, like the woman Mariana helped, who we heard about earlier.
We became a important support for her, and we became her best secret. We definitely shared with her about the U visa, especially because she already had called the police multiple times. It was just a matter of us initiating the application.
For an application to be successful, the district attorney's office or the police department has to say that the victim helped in the investigation and prosecution of the crime. Here's attorney Michael Longworth again.
And then you'll gather those basically with your supporting documents as well. So any affidavits that you have stating any physical or mental harm as a result from the crime that you're filing the U visa for, as well as medical bills or anything like that. Just anything kind of corroborating your evidence.
Remember, VAWA cases typically take around 4 years. Longworth says for U visas, it's an even longer wait, roughly 10 years for the average case. This protective program quickly transforms into a years-long limbo. USCIS does have a way of predicting which cases will be approved.
USCIS has developed a kind of internal practice, I guess, of what's called a bona fide determination, where they'll look at it. They won't approve or deny it, but they'll kind of give a hint of like, this is one that will likely be approved or one that will likely be denied. And then you can shift your strategy from there, however it may be.
That's an extremely long time to be left to steep in uncertainty. It is partly because of the 10,000 cap on U visas. In the 2024 fiscal year, USCIS reported receiving over 41,000 U visa applications. The 10,000 that were approved that year were from previous years, not 2024. If the U visa is approved, it is valid for 4 years. The applicant gets temporary permission to live and work in the U.S. They can apply for a green card after they get the U visa. Meeting survivors in one of the darkest moments of their lives gives advocates like Mariana a unique chance to build confidence and shower them in love and support. It also builds a bond that often follows them after their case is over. Mariana still keeps in touch with the U visa applicant and domestic violence survivor she helped.
She got her U visa. I think about 3 years after she secured her visa, 3 or 4 years, she bought a house. Her children are grown, and we definitely still keep in touch with her.
It's time for another quick recap. A U visa application begins with a police report. A form is sent to either the district attorney's office or the police department that responded to the crime for their certification. The application has to include evidence, documents such as medical bills and affidavits. After the application is sent, the waiting game begins. If the visa is approved, the applicant can finally begin the process of moving on. They are granted deferred action. They can now legally work. After a few years, they can apply for a green card and try for permanent residency. Advocates say when it comes to VAWA and U visas, not much has changed yet under the Trump administration. But they say Trump's campaign to deport more immigrants has created a chilling effect. Mariana says Milwaukee's Latina Resource Center is working hard to make sure people know there is help for them. They want to prevent isolation that could do more harm than good.
So I think about how do we continue to stay connected during this time. We are approaching it the same way. We're doing a lot of outreach. We're participating in a lot of community events, visibility about our services, visibility of what we do.
But she says she's impressed by the strength of the survivors she's worked with. They have to sort through so many complex systems, all while carrying the trauma of abuse.
The need to navigate systems is our history. Okay? We've had to navigate the judicial system, the language system, the educational system, in so many different ways. And I think that speaks a lot about the resilience of our community.
For undocumented crime victims, the fight for permanent residency is more than a legal process. It's a test of survival.
That story was from reporter Maria Peralta Arellano. If you or a loved one are in any need of help, please visit WUWM.com for a list of resources. Status Pending is produced by WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR, part of the NPR network. Our team includes
Audrey Nowakowski,
Excaret Nunez,
Emily Files,
Catherine Kokel,
Maria Peralta Arellano,
Valeria Navarro Villegas,
Samia Said,
and me, Jimmy Gutierrez. Music in this episode is by Blue Dot Sessions. Subscribe to the Status Pending podcast for more stories of people in Wisconsin navigating the U.S. immigration system.